Hello there. Welcome to SMarketPlace, Sales, Marketing, and Rock and Roll. I'm Keith Reynolds. I'm the host, and I'm with Tom Dempsey, my co-host. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, all right, Keith. Good to see you as always.
Same. Any news on the Dead and Co?
Oh, yes. Saw them last year, as probably everybody knows here, at the Sphere, and they're doing another residency starting this month at the Sphere. So me and my seven friends are going to meet and go see a series of shows again in April.
Nice. All right. Well, we got Chris checking in. Welcome, Chris.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. Another day, another episode, the SMarketPlace Live. I'm excited for today's episode.
Good to have you again. And Rich, welcome, our guest.
Thanks, Keith. It's good to be here. This is a very interesting format, and I'm really happy to be with you today.
Terrific. Well, we're growing. We've gotten a bunch of momentum in the last couple months with the show. You know, our thing is not a million downloads. Our value add is to help turn these interviews into content strategies as well as video clips of you kind of informally talking about your business. And then, of course, we go to our favorite topic, rock and roll. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, I have had a very long career in the wireless business, building out cell phone networks for the wireless carriers. And after about a 40-year career, I decided that I wanted to try some other businesses. And about 7 or 8 years ago, I got into the media business, digital media. Actually, we started that company by publishing a print magazine in the in-building wireless space. So if you go into a building in any major city over a certain height, there's really no coverage in that building. And in deep spaces in like the elevators, there's no coverage. So people are adding wireless coverage to their buildings so that everyone has seamless coverage for Wi-Fi, cell phones, etc. So did that for a number of years, sold that business about 3 years ago. And about a year or so ago, I got very interested in the electric vehicle charging space. And so we started a newsletter and have expanded on it from there. But we started a newsletter called Charged Up. I thought that was appropriate for this. And so Charged Up is a weekly newsletter to our audience of about 70 or 80,000 people. And we do webinars, podcasting. And now we've just been invited to do a sort of show within a show at the Connect X event, which is sponsored by WIA, the Wireless Infrastructure Association, in May. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that today, but just exciting times in the electric vehicle charging space with, the government adding things, canceling things, new car companies coming out, companies in the charging business going away, coming back. So there's a lot going on, but that's a thumbnail on me and my background, Keith.
That's terrific, and I was fascinated. Now, you and I met through the EV charging industry. Loved what you were doing with the show in Chicago, and I was fascinated to learn about the overlap of skills and how, regardless of whether the policies come and go, electrification is coming. It's like the PC, right? Or the internet. They're coming. And so the transferable skills from the wireless to the EV charging, talk a little bit about that and why that transition was so easy for you.
Yep. So that's a great question. And the answer very simply is an EV charging site is more like a cell phone tower site without a tower than it is just about any other type of construction. And so that's not my phone. So the good news is those are very much similar near neighbor businesses. We think that about 70% of the folks that are in the cell phone business have moved over to begin either completely doing EV charging or doing EV charging and cell phone tower work. So it's a very close, near neighbor business, as I mentioned, and there's a lot of folks that are interested in finding out more about how they can take advantage of the opportunity in EV charging. That's why we're doing this event at the cellular telephone event, or cellular wireless internet, wireless infrastructure association show.
Talk to us a little bit about the industry and its growth, size and growth, and what you see. You're right in there, both at the installation level, where the feet on the street, and you're covering it from a media perspective. Talk to us about what you're seeing.
Well, that's good. That's a good question. And we have two businesses we could talk about. One is the wireless business, which again has been going, and I've been personally involved in it since 1985. So for 40 years, the carriers have been building out the networks, and there have been multiple changes. We call the Gs, 1G, 2G. Now we're up to 5G, and we're looking towards 6G. Things clearly have slowed down in the business because they've spent hundreds of billions of dollars building out those networks. As I said at a recent show I did in New York, the EV charging business reminds me of the cell phone business 35 years ago, 30 years ago. There are no rules. There are tons and tons of players. Companies are coming and going. There's so much going on, and it reminds me so much of that business. The situation currently is we've got a ton of companies manufacturing chargers. Then we've got a series of companies that are using those chargers to go out and install them and make money off the electricity. Then we've got companies that are simply saying, you want to buy them, we'll install them for you, and you can make the money on the electricity yourself, Mr. Landlord or Mr. Parking Lot owner. So what's happening is, it's, as I said with the wireless business, it's sort of the Wild West. And as time goes on, there's consolidation, and people start to get grouped together, and things sort of organized. Then there's spending for advertising, et cetera, et cetera. So the situation is, right now we're in the Wild West phase of EV.
Yep, it's a land grab,
Right?
like cell phone towers.
So there is just a tremendous amount of growth, Rich, and I'll ask the question as an EV car owner. What's it going to look like 5 years from now from a national infrastructure standpoint, do you think?
Well, Tom, I think you got to look at 5-year horizons, 10-year, and then even longer. I think what you'll see is there'll be a consolidation. Obviously, Tesla was smart at the beginning and created not only electric vehicles, but they connected electric vehicles with a charging network. And it's so vital. I built out a Tesla charging site in Paramus, New Jersey, 8 or 9 years ago, and still operating. It's operating very well. And that's the kind of the key element that gave Tesla the leg up on things, is they had a charging network that was effective. It was where people needed to be, and it's still continuing to roll out. I think in 5 years, what you'll see is consolidation, and there'll be, 6 or 7 major networks that'll happen out there that people can use. And I think you'll see at say the 5 to 10 year mark, AI making it much easier for someone who owns an electric vehicle to know where to charge, when to charge, how much to charge, and how much they're paying for all of that. So those are the things that I think will become important as we look to AI to be part of the networks.
Interesting.
And I think the places you see chargers are going to change drastically, right? I think we all have a model around the gas station and places out on a corner that you would go charge. Most of the charging is done at home, but I think the big growth is going to come in commercial office spaces, more traditional retail, charge at your restaurant while you're getting a meal. So it'll integrate with your lifestyle, not make you go somewhere special.
Yeah, and that's true. I think you're going to see the rollout more so of the convenience store. So the combination of charging and something else is going to be really what's important. Whether that means you can go in and get a magazine and a coffee, or that means you can go in and mail your letters, or a whole host of things. I'm not so sure that the gas station model is something that people are going to adopt anytime soon because of some of the just laws of physics about how electricity and fuel doesn't necessarily go together. I think that's going to be sort of a longer term trend. But I think the convenience store model, I think the parking lot model, I think the charge at home and charge at work model is going to be important. And then just the ability for there to be a charger when you need it somewhere on the road when you're driving down there, whether it's a highway, whether it's somebody's office building, or just public charging in a bigger way.
Now, your event, Chris and I have done some events together. Your event is a trade show within a show, and it's geared towards the infrastructure. So, talk a little bit about how, what you just said in terms of the rollout of the way you see the market unfolding to the infrastructure part of your event.
Yeah, we are looking to do more educating and helping companies in cooperation with this trade show event, the Connect X show. We're looking to do more educating and helping companies that are, they're coming out of a wireless business that's frankly very slow at the moment. And there just isn't a lot of construction, new projects going on. And there's change out of equipment and generations, et cetera. But companies are now looking over the fence saying, what else could I do? I can do in-building wireless, and I could do EV charging sites. So we're looking to do as much educating on how do you find the money to do these things, and what does it take to put a site together from a design and build standpoint, and how do you get into the business? Where do you find companies that are looking for chargers? And so we're trying to do as much educating here as we can. But I think the companies that are attending these events are sponge to try to know more about what they're looking at. I spent my entire career, became second nature to understanding who was who, what was what companies were at sort of the top of the heap, what companies you could work for as a subcontractor, et cetera. And that's the same situation we're going into now with EV charging is, who can I actually work with? I'm not going necessarily to companies that are going to build 10,000 charging sites. I need to be able to do a reasonable number for my size company. So those are the considerations, and we're trying to do a lot of educating here.
So you're bringing in the installer community and helping them evaluate the new market, where the opportunity is for them through education, but also let them see what it takes to market it and what kind of vendors to work with. Is that what I understand the value add of?
Yeah, but I'll add something to that, Keith. You're right on with most of that. But the other part of it is we think it's not just the installer community, it's the tower companies that may want to be involved in EV charging, the public tower companies. We think it's some of the in-building wireless companies that are involved in making sure that there's either Wi-Fi or cellular or some other communications protocol so that EV chargers work. We're looking at companies, even the carriers have interest in this because they're going to need, if you've got 24 chargers and people are going to be there for an extended period of time, and they need to communicate with the chargers, and they also are going to sit there in their car and make phone calls, we need to make sure that there's enough capacity for the cell phone networks and those things. So I think you're going to see the carriers, the tower companies, the installers, everyone who's interested in looking at new markets will be interested in what we're doing here with this.
So who are you recruiting? Who are you trying to reach? And what's your pitch? This is a sales and marketing show here.
Right. So the pitch is that if you're in the business related to EV charging and you want to talk to people and make sure they understand what your products and services and how you operate, what the costs are, that would be a place where you could come and be exposed to hundreds and hundreds of people. The sponsorship packages come with space on the show floor. It comes with an opportunity to hand out materials. It comes with passes. It comes with a whole host of things. And again, everybody in the EV charging business could sit home and say, boy, it's slow, or I need more leads, or, they could sit there, sucking their thumb, waiting for things to fall into their lap. But outbound marketing is the way you're going to get your message out there. And you and I are both sales and marketing guys by training. It's important that you go outbound and you tell people your story. And that's what this event is for.
I have a question in regards to like what you're doing from the like where do you see the intersections between the media space and the marketing space and then the charging space, and how like as we know, media has been democratized as far as like social media and people creating content, and it sounds like the charging situation is going in that same direction as far as energy and all those type of things. So can you talk a little bit about that, like how those two things are going to be, how they're alike and how they're different in a way?
Right. So what's going on right now is like sitting in a very, very noisy restaurant, and you can hear bits and pieces of things, but it's one big roar. And so let's break down your question, Chris. The situation is right now, if you go to Google and you're interested in EV charging in some form, and you go to Google, and the first 10 things you see are paid advertising for everybody with a product to sell. But if you're looking at objective information and you're looking to try to understand what you need to know rather than being sold on this brand or that brand, you want objective information. And I think you're going to get it more from social media, from things like LinkedIn, from Facebook, and other ways of doing it. And then going to Google and going past the first 10 or 12 paid ads and looking and saying, okay, who's out there that I can trust to get information on this topic and is not paying for the top couple of spots on Google? That's who I want to hear from. And I want to find out what I need to know. What chargers work well, what chargers have good uptime ratings, those kinds of things. And I think it's more, as you said, the democratization is finding out the real story rather than being sold something. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yeah, definitely. Now, do you think that as far as like the opportunity for money being made in the media space has, I feel like it shrunk in the beginning when like record labels were closing and magazines and newspapers were closing, but then it kind of opened this new world for people like Joe Rogan to be making tens of millions of dollars on podcasts now, and these different influencers who are making millions of dollars. So where do you think the monetization of this democratization of the energy would come from? Is it going to be millionaire convenience store owners who now have giant parking lots and is making a lot of money off of charging? Or is it like, a random guy who's just focused on building these type of portfolios? Like, where do you see the actual like market growing and getting money from this?
So I'm going to split that into two pieces. The people that will make money off charging itself and the people that are looking at what they can do in the media space. So I'm in the media part of this, and we're looking at carrying information to people that they need to make intelligent decisions about this. So if you own a school bus company and you own a school bus contracting company, and you're going to get 10 buses from the state of New Jersey, and you need to figure out what you're going to do to charge those buses. We want to be an information source for those kinds of people. How we'll make money at that will be from companies that are interested in getting their message out, but in a more objective way rather than hard sell. So, we see the media space as being the information carrier. We're the arms dealer. We're not fighting the war. We're the arms dealer here, bringing information to people. The other side of the house is an interesting one. I did a conference a year or so ago in New York, and I was moderating a panel. I stopped the proceedings and I said, hey, anybody in this room making money? And the room was like a murmur, like, ooh, hot topic. If you look at the landscape of the EV charging market, making money is sort of a distant hope at this point in time because of the amount of usage, how much money is being spent to build out the infrastructure, and then how you reap from the electric usage on those chargers. But it's very much like my background in the wireless business. Companies didn't make money for a very long time because they had to spend so much money developing their network and then putting it up. And eventually it became a printing press. And companies like Verizon and T-Mobile and AT&T now have their networks out there and they're printing money, but it took a while before they were profitable. And that's what you're going to see in the EV charging space.
I love it. I'm excited for this and what's to come in this
Yeah,
market.
it is an exciting time. And again, having watched another industry mature, it's kind of exciting. Again, I got into the cell phone business when there were no rules and no co-op advertising and no marketing budgets and nothing. And so it developed. Now you see ads on TV for T-Mobile and Verizon every 5 minutes. And that's what will happen eventually in EV charging too. Yep.
To touch on your cell phone and marketing experience from that side, right? Where do you see like now? I'm constantly in the weeds with emails and text message marketing and all these things, and the regulations keep getting more strict and allow you to do less from a phone marketing perspective, calls and text messages and things of that nature. Where do you see like that market going as far as like now with more AI coming, with more of these different new platforms, opportunities to get in front of customers? Do you think that, like, for example, the charging space is going to go up and then it's going to take market share from the phone market and those places where media is currently being distributed?
Oh no, they're symbiotic businesses. No, one won't bastardize the other, but they work together hand in hand. So it's like, will ice cream take the ice cream cone business away? No, they work together. So you'll see one business, which is absolutely critical to the other, be kind of a symbiotic situation. So no, they won't steal from each other. But
It's more
one
screens.
business can't really live without the other. There will be no EV charging without good communications protocols. So the carriers will benefit from this, and so will companies that do installation work and design of these networks that make sure that there's coverage in that parking lot or in that convenience store lot.
So if you're the owner of property, what's the opportunity now, and how do you future-proof?
Two choices. One is a model that some convenience stores have said, look, I got a parking lot. You want to put 10 chargers out there? Fine. I'm going to charge you a monthly rental fee. Other companies have gone at it in a different aspect, either to own or to have someone manage for them and get a split of the electricity. The question is, how long do you think, or how long does Mr. Landlord think it's going to take before there's enough usage of those chargers that there's money to be made on the electricity? If that looks to them like it's going to be 5 years or 10 years, they're probably better off renting the space. If they think that there's enough demand for people to come and charge constantly in their lot, then it's more of a wise decision for them to be a party to the transaction and make money off the electricity. So again, in this wireless business, and I come back to that again and again, there was the choice for carriers to either build their own towers or to let someone else build it, put the CapEx out, and then simply be paid a fee to let the tower company own it and pay them rent. So I see this developing in the same way. You've got chocolate, you've got vanilla, you pick the way you want to go.
So you can evaluate it from a capital deployment perspective, or you might do it charging as a service for a while to get some experience and have somebody else put up the capital.
Exactly. Charging as a service is a very legitimate way to go in this situation. There are lots of people that are going to own and manage them themselves, and that's another way to do it. And it is really a capital allocation decision. How do you allocate your capital most effectively for your business, and which way do you want to go? So, in a school bus situation, one of the really important and very viable businesses is working with bus companies, school bus companies, especially that are getting free buses handed to them and need charging. Some of them will want to do this out of their own pocket with their own money, and some will want charging as a service.
More pay as you go.
Right. Or no, or someone else pays, and then either you get a split of it or you have the service at your disposal. So yeah, it's there are multiple ways to view this business, and I think there's probably a few schemes that will come up that we haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah. Well,
I have a question, Rich, regarding the democratization of the power and energy. Do you believe, like, just use an example, like what you just said there, like a school district that has a bunch of electric school buses, for example. Do you see a future where the cost of energy will go down to zero or close to zero because of this democratization, and everyone essentially, like me and Keith talked about in the past, but it's very similar to, like, if everyone had an oil, a thing in their land, they had oil that they could just strike up and get gas. That's the equivalent of what this solar power and charging the batteries is all about. As far as, like, you have an endless supply of solar, and then as long as you can put it in that battery to charge it up, you can sell that the charge forward. So do you see it as in a place or in a timeline, maybe, I don't know what you would think, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, is there like a place where it'll end up like, kind of like a Facebook, where companies that want to advertise to you while you're charging up end up covering the charging fee? Like, am I far off here? Like, what do you think about this?
So that's a great question. Although it was a long question, it was a great one. And I'll split that into two again. I think there is way too little power being generated to charge all the vehicles that will be sold in the future. And so it's now up to the utility companies to figure out how they're going to add a tremendous amount of power generating capability. Now, I do have a friend who is one of the most intelligent people I know, who's got solar on his roof. He's got two power walls that store power that are like, battery storage units. And he has 4 electric vehicles that he charges off that closed system. But yet, Chris, he still has a generator just in case. The sun doesn't always shine and there isn't always enough power to do what he needs to do. So he does have a generator. So that is a closed system that someday could be everyone's got solar on the roof, everyone's got batteries in their house, and everybody's charging their electric vehicles. I don't see that anytime soon. The other part of your question was, could the cost of charging go down? I think there is one model that is very, very important in this whole thing, and that is chargers that have a screen on it that show advertising. And so you can go to a charging station. My local mall has charging stations, and those charging stations show ads, and they obviously defray some of the cost of the charging station and the electricity, but the people who charge on those units are still paying for the electricity, but the companies that are putting up the capital to do those installations are making money off the advertising. Will it come to a day someday where there's enough advertising, including local, that they'll give it to you for free? Maybe. I don't see it anytime soon, but it's certainly a model that is there. I hope that answers your question.
Yep.
Another angle that it reminded me of is I just posted on Accelerate's page about a car that was tested recently that has basically, it's a perpetual motion machine, Chris. So you talk about free power. The car itself had solar panels on it. It used electricity as its energy to generate the forward motion, and it passed its test with in 10 years. They're talking about cars in the right climate just being able to be a perpetual motion machine and drive off what it picks up off the sun.
Yeah, and again, that goes to the question of if you get a place where it's very rainy or the sun doesn't shine that particular week or month, and you have issues, you always need the backup. But I think that hybrid vehicles are selling quite well at this point in time, and that solves a good portion of that issue. That you've got a small motor with gasoline for the time when maybe you don't have a charging station handy, or you pull up and they're broken. You have a small motor in there, so that hybrid vehicle fits well into what you were just saying, Keith. And I think certainly having solar panels on vehicles might be a future solution, but I don't know how much power they would generate you, whether you'd have enough area to run that vehicle perpetually.
I think the technology is years off, but I think the key point is that when we depended on electricity from large utilities, that I lived in Connecticut, when you have right on the Long Island Sound these huge power plants that supply electricity to hundreds of thousands of people. There's a one size fit all, right? Today, what you're going to see in the next 5 years to meet that demand that's growing is these individual solutions, the microgrids, and people, and the economics are there, and the technology is there, that we're not going to evaluate it like we did 10 years ago. It's now, how do I create a solution that has the economics working so I can get the power I need for my application?
And let me not be Debbie Downer here about this, but people need to understand that in order to run your electric vehicle, somebody is generating power somewhere to make that work. Now, maybe it's great that it's coming from a windmill or it's coming from a solar farm, but in general, we're still generating an enormous amount of energy for these vehicles and data centers. Data centers are sopping up a good portion of the additional capacity that the utilities are generating. So we have a power crunch going here, but it's one that we can solve by being as thoughtful as possible about all the different choices we have to generate power.
All right. Well, we're winding up time-wise. Our favorite part of the show, Rich, is to talk about rock and roll. We love sales and marketing, but we love rock and roll even more. I know you had briefed us just a little bit. Tell us about your rock and roll story. Has to be
one of my first concerts, and I, again, anybody who's younger than I am won't remember this group, but there was a group called Jethro Tull. Was one of the first concerts I went to, and I had a pair of sunglasses, that like two diamond-shaped sunglasses. And I went to the concert, and I was sitting very close. I was sort of literally, underneath Ian Anderson, and he saw the glasses, reached down, put them on, and then handed them back. And the guy next to me was like, "Let me have half of those." He was going to break these sunglasses in half. And needless to say, I cautioned him not to do that. So that was one of my very first concerts. The other funny one that I've got is went to a Kiss concert fairly recently. And as I was leaving the house, I thought to grab my earplugs. I was with my closest friend, my childhood buddy. We went to the concert, and I put the earplugs in. Kiss started to play. I looked over, his face, literally the skin on his face was being pushed back. It was so loud. He had the look of horror, like, oh my God. And so
he was upset. He forgot his earplugs.
He was upset he forgot his earplugs, and wound up, I tore mine in half, gave him a pair, and I took the other half and made a pair out of them. And so you gotta do the right thing by your friends.
That's great. Well, Kiss and Jethro Tull, man, those are way back machine, but good music. I took my son to see Jethro Tull when he was about 13 or 14 years old. He didn't want to go. We got to the concert. He heard them and did the same thing with Blue Oyster Cult. And then on the way home, he was like, "They were awesome."
Yeah, but those groups, some of those guys are sponsored by Metamucil now. They're so guys have been around for a very long time. Let's put it that way. But the opportunity to see some of those groups with the guys. Thank God some of these guys are still alive and we can still see them.
And it's beautiful that their music is that legendary, that they're still pulling crowds and people to this day. So that's really what it's all about. The love for music is endless, it's timeless. It doesn't matter the age. So
Yeah. I'm dying to see. I've just seen AC/DC a couple of times. I love them, and I would love to see a redo of Guns N' Roses. But I don't know. Maybe that's a pipe dream.
So you like that searing guitar?
I do. I'm a absolute metalhead.
All right.
love it.
So I hope, Keith, thank you so much for having me on this. But I want to stress that anybody who would like to participate in this ConnectX event that we're doing, we're calling it the Charged Up Luncheon at ConnectX, can get in touch with me either on LinkedIn, Rich Berliner. I'm on LinkedIn, or can email me at rich@chargeduppro.com. And I really appreciate you having me on the show today.
We're glad to share our resource here with you, and good luck on putting the butts in the seats.
I think you're doing a great job with this, and I wish you the best.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Let's go.